I am Reverend Irene Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking. Here at the table, we come and we discuss life issues, no matter what they might be. As we sit at the table with each generation, we all learn, we all grow, we all are inspired.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Generationally Speaking.
Hello, welcome. Welcome to Generationally Speaking, and obviously, I'm not Reverend Smith. She done let the cowboy run the show, so you're in trouble for today. I am James Durham, for those of you who may not know me, but many of you are a repeat visitor, attender, viewer of the show. Welcome back again. We are in the great state of Tennessee. We're here interviewing individuals from the Family Foundation Fund. I have Isaiah Kirk, David Kirk, and Isaac Kirk. We have two sons of the founder of the Family Foundation Fund and one nephew. So I do want to have you introduce yourselves. We can start with you, sir.
All right. I'm Isaiah Kirk. I am the middle, I guess it'd be the middle child if there's 8. So I'm the second oldest boy. No, third oldest boy. See, and yeah, I basically, whatever they tell me to do, I do.
Awesome.
I like that. I mean, I didn't know he'll do anything I told him to do, so I'll start doing it. I'm David Kirk. Uncle Onnie is my nephew, Onnie Kirk, the founder of Family Foundation Fund. My dad was his oldest brother. My dad passed away in 1998. So Uncle Onnie has always been more of a father figure to me. So I call him Dad, but that's how it is. I'm the nephew.
All right.
So, yeah.
I'm the namesake. I'm Onnie Isaac Kirk IV, the second oldest of the 8 children, the oldest son. So growing up, Big Dave was like my big brother, and he kind of paved the way in our household for our parents to figure out this parenting thing.
Okay,
They
cool.
practiced on me.
Well, we are here because of this awesome organization that is the Family Foundation Fund. And we had Papa Onnie, as he said I can call him. We're all family. Papa Onnie, we had him interviewed and he shared from his perspective. But I want to hear from you all. Just tell the audience a little bit about the Family Foundation Fund.
Big Dave?
Well, I would say definitely Family Foundation Fund has always been, it's been pivotal for my life. My brother and I, so I have 2 brothers. I'm the middle son. So I have an older brother, his name's Onnie as well. He's Onnie the third. And then I have a younger brother named Robert. But I think what Uncle Onnie saw, what God put on his heart a long time ago, he saw that my parents, their relationship didn't work out. My father wasn't really active in my life, and I think early on, God was showing him what his life, what my Uncle Onie's life would end up, his lifelong journey would be like by working with kids that come from homes from broken families where the father is absent from the home. And so Family Foundation Fund has always done a wonderful job of working with boys who come from homes where the father is absent. And so, again, I don't like to use the word practice, but I will say that we were probably the first where he was actually seeing that, hey, this is very needful in our community. And it's been a blessing to us. I mean, he's taught us things that, that just lifelong lessons. And I see he does that with the boys in the Family Foundation Fund as well, whether it's trips that they go on or just teaching them how to manage their finances but most importantly, teaching them their relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I think that has been the foundational thing that Family Foundation Fund has done, the importance of a father in a child's life.
Awesome. You called it practice, but God is very intentional to take us through experiences
Yes.
that prepares us
I agree.
for the task that he has, for the purpose that he has for us down the road. And perhaps what I'm hearing is that's what God was doing with Onnie
Yes.
through you.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So let's hear from Isaac and Isaiah. Tell us about just your experience growing up.
Okay, me. I'm going to talk now. Growing up, we had such a rich childhood because, we come from a large family, so there was always a tremendously diverse set of voices and opinions kind of just echoing through the halls and the stairways of our home. And then you mix in people in ministry, people in need. Our dinner table was just a very vibrant learning lab. Like you got to kind of experience the world through different people's struggles, and it gave a really unique texture to our childhood. And to this day, that's why I love stories. Like I love to read, and I'm very involved with telling stories and helping people tell their stories. And it also gave us a heart for other people because we would see, we knew what our home looked like and the safety that was just innately there. And then we would go drop some of these other people off at school, or we'd go drop them off at home. And then we got to kind of see their reality. And it wasn't through a lens, it wasn't through a book, it was firsthand. We got to really see like how fortunate and blessed we were. So it really instilled in us a heart for people and for community. And all of my siblings in some regard are very active in our community, in this North Nashville corridor, in one way or another. Just trying to, the seed that was planted, water it and let it grow in a unique way. And a lot of that starts with empathy. We have very empathetic parents.
Awesome. Isaiah?
Well, I was hoping that I had to say a whole lot. Since there's so many of us. Well, the Family Foundation Fund, you actually said one key word, intentional. We're an intentional family. There's a lot of us, so that means my parents, my mom, she stayed home. Like my mom was a real estate agent. Basically, when she started having children, she kind of like, hey, I want to be a mother. She kind of just came home and raised us. Now, it's very hard to spend, backstory for a little bit of my mom. My mom was also a model as well. So she was a model and a real estate agent.
She was killing the game.
Who modeled in Europe, New York, and all those other things. But they were like, we want a family. And so that's kind of where the seed kind of started. And they actually led by example. That's one of the biggest things, leading by example. They were intentional, like, hey, we have these children, we want to raise these children in a whole environment. And so that's basically the foundation of where my parents started. Actually, so jumping a little bit forward, I'm one of the guys who basically, I'm the laborer. If you probably saw me early in the garden, up there doing things I'm usually behind the scenes. I was very shocked when they asked me to come and, be in front of the lens, essentially. But the Family Foundation Fund is really just practical, what a family should look like. Exactly. That's really all I can really say is what family looks like when it works together. So if we work together, things can get accomplished, whether it's the littlest of tasks or the greatest of tasks. And that's essentially what the Family Foundation Fund is, just an example of what family should look like working together. So.
Awesome. You all said a few things I want to follow up on. I want to start with the dinner table. You mentioned the conversations you had at the dinner table. I understand that you all are grandsons of a pastor. And so I imagine at the dinner table, a lot of those conversations was around faith, God, Christianity. I know from personal experience having a child who is a child of a preacher, how that can be for the child. It can be pressure, or you can naturally fall into that lifestyle. So I want to ask, for you all, did you naturally gravitate towards Christianity, being a Christian? And then what does it mean to be a Christian? Because a lot of people, they have a very different definition for that. Or was it tough? Did it make life difficult for you coming up?
Big day.
Start with you, sir.
They like to throw everybody in there.
Are you the elder?
So what they do is they'll let me answer. Then
So we can
They'll perfect their answer.
they'll pull off.
That's
of
intelligence. That's called intentionality.
That is.
Intentionality.
I need to start doing it first. Y'all go ahead. But I will say that So it's interesting. Yes, our grandfather, I think, was a pastor for 50 plus years in El Paso, Texas. So the family is from El Paso, Texas. The homestead is in Marlin, Texas. So I don't want to sound crazy when I say this, but you almost had no choice growing up. Like that's what we are, a family of faith. So we go to church every Sunday. But then it almost, because of that, I think that when you get away from it, when you grow up, and I guess the word says, train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he won't depart from it, right? But there is those times of where you go, oh, well, I want to experience something different because I'm so used to this, right? But very quickly you realize, like, yeah, no, that's not me. You always felt different when you tried to move away from how you grew up. Obviously, we did a lot of church. There was a lot of church activity. And I think as we've grown up, you've asked the question of what it is to be a Christian. I think now, for me personally, I don't necessarily use the word Christian as much as I say as a son of God. And so that relationship with him as my father, it's become more of an intimate, personal relationship, and not, I'm labeling myself as a Christian. Now, I do agree with Christ-like behavior, following Jesus as my Lord and personal Savior, but he's my brother. He's my father. You know, that's the relationship that continues to grow and get nurtured every day, and by people like my Uncle Onnie, who in a very loving and fatherly way will add instruction. And even my Uncle Sam that's here today does the same thing. They're very involved with making sure that those things that were implemented in us at a very young age, that we don't depart from that. Not in a forceful way, but just kind of reminding, hey, this is who you are as a son of God. And then you see the example in the elders in our family. Like, this is how they walk. At the same time, just the world is changing, right? So there is constantly changing. So we're just constantly having to, with fellowship with each other and our fathers and elders in the family, just having to learn to navigate continually. And so that's, I would say that's a challenge, but at the same time, it's the blessing in having the community of family that helps keep you accountable.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Did you all perfect your responses, or is that speaks for you? Is that good?
That's all. No, there was no internal pressure in any regard to like find a pulpit, become a minister. Our grandfather, my uncles, my dad have always just loved people, and what that looked like was real, tangible, actionable. So the faith that we profess is actionable. It's not this textbook only on Sunday. It's every day of the week. And that's what we saw lived before. So when we got out on our own, right is right, wrong is wrong, but love is the thing that you can feel even when you are out there doing the wrong thing. And so I've just always aspired to live, because they were very honest with us. They were very honest with their struggles. Everybody's success is always on display, but my grandfather and my dad and my uncle and my cousin have always just been very candid about, oh, these are things that I struggled with early on in my walk, or these are things that didn't make sense to me. Here you go. So literally, like, as I default to him to answer, like, in my real life, I've been like, yo, Dave, like, what does this look like in real time? Because he's already figured out a lot of this stuff because he's lived through it. So the answer in short summation, I guess, is they've just lived an authentic life. And so when you see something real and you experience the fake, you just kind of gravitate towards back to the real thing, because you don't want nothing else.
I love that answer. I love it. Because when we have genuine relationship with God and it's authentic, what comes out of that is love. And that takes me to what you spoke about earlier. You mentioned how you've come up in this family, in this environment. It taught you to have a heart for others and to do for others. So I want to stay there for a little bit and just talk about how do you live your life now because of the experiences that you've had as a youth, because things you've seen your father, your uncle, your brothers, your cousins do together. How has that shaped you today?
And quick action item, I carry around a can of chili and bottle of waters in the back of my car. And I carry around a can of chili because when there's a lot of homeless people. And so we get granola bars, like just non-perishable items. And so when I'm driving at a red light, I can just reach into my little console and then just give them a little care package. Like that's just one thing of, I might not got $5 to give you, or if the spirit moves and say, yo, give this man some money, then I'll do it, but I'm gonna double check, like, yo, you sure I got this chili right here? Like, you sure? It's like, that's just one in terms of a broader community sense. However, in closer to nuclear family, I make it a point that I take my kids to go volunteer in the community. Like we go to the soup kitchen. Big Dave's a phenomenal golfer, so I make sure that my kids go and they volunteer at a place called Vinny Links. It's a golf program that exposes the game to people who wouldn't normally come in contact with it. And so me and my 10-year-old son are there, like trying to break down the game of golf, because the golf is a wonderful tool and it's a wonderful social resource for people, and a lot of networking is done on the golf course. A lot of business, a lot of opportunity is present in that game, and so we go do that. It's like just those small things. There's like Room in the End. That's another homeless-oriented shelter where people come and there's a kitchen and we can go serve there. I want them to know what their community looks like from top to bottom, and I want them to know and how we were taught that our actions matter in terms of the larger community. And so those are just like small action items that we do in my home. And now my kids, even on the ride, like they'll see a homeless person, they're like, oh, let's get a water. Like, so like now like they know what the expectation is. I am to care for my community. It's not a big thing, but it's something that they now, when they see the world, they see it, oh, this is not a vagrant, this is not a throwaway person in society. This is an opportunity for me. This is a growth opportunity. And so by painting the world in terms of actionable items and small steps that can be taken towards the healing and restoration of the community, I feel like that's kind of how I'm carrying on the legacy of my grandfather and my father.
Awesome. Did you all have anything to add to that?
Big Dave. First off, I didn't know you had carrot cheer. I didn't know what that story
I didn't know
was.
we carried either. I mean, I was like, man, I like chili. I mean, I'm gonna start hitting them up for the chili.
I think that's an amazing example and really should be an inspiration to those watching and to those who see you, because Jesus told us over and over again to love one another. And what I've come to learn in my life is that love is not just an emotion, it's action, it's what we do. And so I love how you exhibit that and you teach that to your children, and teaching it to your children, people who see you, they're taking that in as well. So what I want to go to next is Isaiah. He mentioned my favorite word. You didn't know this, but my favorite word is intentional. To live your life intentionally, it does something. And I want you all to speak, because clearly you've been raised, you've come up in an environment to live your life intentionally. You have to be very intentional to carry around chili and water, just to always be ye ready. So what does being intentional do? What does that do for you? What does that do to set the atmosphere?
I'll tell a quick story. So we were homeschooled growing up, and so there's no way my dad knew that this would turn into this. This guy's 6'8", has probably like 3% body fat, was a professional basketball player. But like, there's no way you can forecast that. I mean, you can assume some things, looking at my dad is tall, my mom is tall. But he would wake us up at 5:30 every morning and take us to the YMCA. My dad's not a great basketball player, but he knew, okay, if I can instill discipline and a work ethic in them, that will take them far beyond what my natural giftings are. So he wasn't taking us because of his own thing. He was taking us to teach us discipline, and then that discipline carried over into carving a tremendous path just for this one brother. And the discipline learned in that small window of time of, we wake up, we go to the Y, we run our mile, we go put up some shots, we go play racquetball, we go swimming, was I'm responsible for my time and the talent that I've been given. And that's just the parable of the talents. And so that intentionality has led to us kind of making small modifications to that formula, but it showed up in such tremendous ways in each of our lives. So that's how I view the intentional aspects of my childhood.
I mean, just piggybacking on that, I mean, I think what I hear from Uncle about being intentional with your time, time is something that more of that's not being made. I think that's how he says, time is, we have to be important with the time that we're given. And so I think if we use it in this aspect, our time with the Father in heaven would affect how we use our time here on earth, right? So as we're intentional about how we spend time with him, so he'll say something to me along the lines of, and this is be like an instruction he'd give, well, son, how much time have you spent before Father, when you were going to make that decision? And sometimes I can say, well, I did go and spend time with the Lord, and how was that decision? Well, everything worked out, or even some things didn't work out. But always being intentional about how you spend time with Father, how you spend time with your family, how you spend time with, me, my wife, my kids, my two sons, my cousins, my family as a whole. Are you always ignoring that running to go do business? Or are you always ignoring that to go watch TV or, so being intentional about how you're doing that, because that's a seed that's going to be sown, that's going to bear fruit, and if you don't, if you're not intentional or you're intentional about the wrong thing, that's also going to bear some type of fruit. And so that's when I hear it intentional, that's how it impacts me.
Awesome. So we have here in front of me 2 brothers, 1 cousin who's really like a brother. I know you're not the only siblings, but what I want you to speak to is the other siblings that you have. How many siblings? But in addition to that, your father is known as Papa Onnie. So he doesn't just have you kids, but he has many surrogate kids. So what I want to talk about is, did that present any challenges for you? Did you ever say, hey, it's enough to have 5 siblings, it was 6 of you, right?
7 siblings.
7. So it's enough to have 7 siblings to compete for some attention over here, but the 7 siblings and the many other young men out there who has daddy's attention. Did you ever have moments where you're like, hey, I wish I could get a little more attention here? And then how did you learn to manage that space? And then what did that teach you that you were able to utilize later in life?
Great question.
I guess since you both are looking this way, so there's a balance to that. So sometimes, yes, you'd be like, man, I want to, I see you spending your time here, but I want you to spend time here. So one of my surrogate brothers, his name is Corey. I was actually one of Corey's best men in his wedding. Me and Corey have known each other since we have been probably 4, 5 years old. So he got in the program when he was 10, and we're still very good friends to this day. So to answer your question, it's yes and no, because it's hard because as you we have a great daddy, I want to be selfish and I want to keep my hey dad, I want you to make sure you're at every single soccer game, because you know what they say is children don't always remember the games and things that you are there for, but they always remember what you're not there for. But one thing, my dad is a dad not to just us, he's a dad to other people too, and he's only one person. So that means he sometimes has to be spread around. But going back to the intentional, he's always intentional to make sure hey, no, I'm here for you. So there are challenges sometimes as a kid. You're oh, you know what? There are challenges that you do have for him not being there, but he is there. He may not be there for every single thing, but he's there for 90% of them. So I don't say that. I hope I'm being clear. I don't think there was ever really an issue to say that there was he is a father of other people, because basically those people got integrated into our family. Our favorite holiday is Thanksgiving. That's like our Super Bowl, because I have a college teammate who comes, him and his wife, they're married. They actually got married here And neither one of them are from here. He just went to college here, but got married here, and their family comes up for Thanksgiving. So that just kind of speaks we just integrate people. So the family just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I think I think that's how it was. The example in the Bible. That's how Abraham was. So that's just the example that is set before us, and we're just essentially living the same thing. So now let them give you a very nice, clear, concise answer.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's important to recognize. I think Uncle Onnie is, admittedly, he would say, I haven't always done everything perfect, right? So if there were times early on in the ministry when it was like, man, really focused on, the ministry growing, trying to do what God has called them to do. I mean, at one point they were doing When Men Pray. That was a prayer event that happened in the city 3 times a year, where he would gather all the men of the city, and we would go to near the War Memorial Auditorium and pray for the city, the gates of the city. I mean, an amazing thing that people, it was kind of in line with like what Promise Keepers was doing. I mean, hundreds of men, thousands that sometimes would come to this prayer event. But they say he had a lot pulling on him at that point. But I think as he has grown, he's realized like there are times when, and here's what I love about him. He'll say, if I might have missed that. Not saying that was a miss with the Women Pray, but I'm saying if there was something he would miss, he would say, if I missed it, or if I didn't do this right, or if I wasn't at that game and I should have been, or, please forgive me, I'm sorry, and that's something that you don't see. He'll admit, like, I didn't do everything perfect. And for me as a father with my own children, now, I don't get it right all the time. There are times when I'm out working when I probably should be at home, those type of things. So I even learned from that. I learned from his willingness to be humble, transparent, willing to admit where I missed it. Because in that, it just helps, even that's helping us grow. So so in that question of, was it always perfect? No, it wasn't always perfect. I was probably one of the ones that's pulling from them being able to have time with their father, because I'm spending time with my nephew. And I mean, they would never see it that way, but obviously, yes, he's pulled on. I was kind of thinking in my head when you were saying he has many children. I was like, about 8,000. But I mean, he has, many people. I mean, all over this nation probably will say, that's my father. And so,
And just to go to show you that, what he was saying, that about the missing with the Women Pray, because it did become a thing down here where many leaders in the city, hey, let's replicate this, let's do this, like let's have these morning breakfasts and things like that. And this goes to show you where my dad's heart is, not a thing of pride. He was like, you know what, this is like, the Lord called the men of the city to pray, but he didn't call me, you guys can pray without me.